Marshall, just so you know, it looks like you're recording the meeting. I don't know if you were planning on doing that or not.
I did not know that.
Yeah, just thought to give you a heads up. I'm also recording it so I can get it to AGP.
Okay. I'm not recording it now.
No, it says you stopped. Perfect.
I wonder why that came up that way, because I never record this meeting. I guess I just got off another Zoom meeting, maybe where I was recording it, so maybe it just carried over.
Possibly.
At least I'm not a rookie. I knew how to stop that.
That is a very true statement.
So many people on Zoom calls like have to get specific instructions to do anything.
I've helped with some of those.
Yes, I know. Dan, and I assume nobody heard that Chuck said, or Charlie said he wasn't going to join the meeting, right?
No, I haven't heard that, and in fact, I spoke with Charlie this morning, so he didn't mention not being able to attend, so I would expect he'll be here.
Okay.
I guess Laura, the other person that I guess we would be looking for as a panelist would be Michael.
Yeah, and I did send him an invite.
I saw that, yeah. Let me check in with him.
Dan, he just came on.
Oh, there you go. Great.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. So could we have a roll call, please, Dan?
Yes, Director Gibson,
Here.
Director Zimmer,
Here.
Chairperson Ohilsky,
Present.
Director Cody. I put him last to give him a couple more seconds.
Well, if he gets on, we'll just, we can
Yep.
get him anyway, whatever. Okay, so does anybody have board member comments, status updates, or anything else that they'd like to talk about before we get into the substantive matters?
Mr. Chairman, this is Bruce. As I'm sure you all know, the board took action on the Los Osos community plan and associated documents yesterday. I think, you all are all well aware of the issues at play there. I'm happy to answer questions or discuss any of them that remain of interest. Of course, the next phase, as big an accomplishment as this is, and I can't tell you how much effort staff have put in over the last 15 years to get us to that point. Of course, the next step is to get this certified by the Coastal Commission. They have not been very expressive in their comments on the draft, even as we've tried to reach out to them and brief them on all the issues. So we'll see. I expect after the first of the year, our county planning staff will be in regular and robust conversation with Coastal. I'm hoping that sometime by the middle of the year next year, we might have this before the Coastal Commission. So,
Okay, thank you. And for the record, Charlie has joined the meeting, Laura, or Dan.
I see that. Thank you. Welcome, Director Cody.
Yeah, it's only 1:30 now, so you've just started it. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Okay, we're on number 3, which is board member comments. So Bruce, thank you for the update on the action taken by the board yesterday. I listened to the whole thing, so I'm pretty familiar with it. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. And if you do, you probably, if they're substantive, it'd probably be good just to email them or text them over to Bruce.
Marshall, this is Mark. I have a comment that I'd like to share with the group. One of the things Golden State Water's been working on is we've been working with the resin manufacturer Pure Light to improve our nitrate removal efficiency and reduce some of the waste stream produced at our Rosina nitrate treatment plant. And so there's a new resin technology that allows for more efficient regeneration, up to 20% less regenerate and 30 to 40% less rinse water. All this contributes to less potable water used in operation, less chemicals used, and less reduced amount of waste disposal costs. So something that may help, our overarching goal is to, or one of the projects in our program B is nitrate removal. One of the concerns with that is just the cost and O&M cost. You got the capital cost and you got the O&M cost, and so this new resin technology could improve or reduce the cost of nitrate removal. There's also an alternate regenerate option that includes eliminating sodium as the regeneration solution, and so that waste stream may have other opportunities for repurpose. It could be, depending on what that regenerated waste is consists of, but some of the options that's been discussed out there is it could be a fertilizer. It could be also at a point where it could be received by the wastewater treatment plant. So instead of disposing of that, it could be actually delivered to the wastewater treatment plant. We're actually working with Cal Poly students on a capstone project along with Pure Light to test this concept in using some of the upper aquifer water from our basin. And it's a mini pilot experiment that almost like a bench test right now to see if they can't utilize this treatment process, this resin, and ultimately produce a waste stream that is a fertilizer. And so just wanted to share that, we're looking at these new technologies. It's something that's not permitted by DDW right now, so we'd have to work with our regulators. One of the things that would require is a pilot test. There could be grant funding for this pilot test. It's something that is we're considering right now. And I just thought it was just really interesting for Los Osos Basin, the upper aquifer, looking at some of our recycled water beneficial use initiatives that there's the potential to tie that into beneficial reuse. And so one of the things in talking with the Pure Light representative is they're willing to come and give us a presentation on this technology and at our next BMC meeting. So I kind of wanted to throw that out there and see if it's something that was interest to the group, and if you wanted me to work with Dan and get that on the agenda for next meeting.
Well, thank you for those comments, Mark. It sounds very, very interesting, being at the cutting edge of technology. I don't know, does the rest of the board members want to agendize this for our January or maybe February meeting?
This is Cody at S&T. I think this sounds very important. I'd like to agendize this for the January meeting.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right, Dan, if you could work with Mark and get that agendized, it'd be great.
Thank you.
Will do.
Okay. Any other board member comments? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Item 4A, which is approval of minutes from the October 21st, 2020 meeting, And 4B, the approval of the warrants, budget update, and invoice register through December 2020. Does anybody have any questions?
None for me. This is Mark.
Okay, so Laura, let's go to public comment.
If you'd like to make a public comment and you're on your phone, please dial *9. And if you're on your computer, please raise your hand. Lindy, you just have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. I guess I wanted to devote most of my public comment to the hearings that were held yesterday. Basically, I feel that the idea that the county would like.
Lindy, excuse me, that's item number 8. This is for comments on the minutes and the warrants.
Oh,
Item number 8 is
I
public.
apologize. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
They're good. I like the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Laura, do we have anybody that wants to comment on 4A or 4B?
There's no other public comment at this time.
Okay, so can we have a motion for approval? And we can have a single motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion
Okay.
by Supervisor Gibson. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Mark.
We have a second by Mr. Zimmer. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
S&T is yes.
Okay, so it was unanimously, the consent agenda was approved. So we'll move on to item number 5, which is the Executive Director's Report. Dan, would you like to give us your report, please?
Yes, item 5, Executive Director's Report. Again, using this as an archive of historical information and conversations, but also highlighting new elements is being underlined in the report. So I'll walk through the new elements and then address or be open to any questions. Starting with funding and financing, I wanted to inform the BMC of an upcoming grant opportunity. The third round of the Prop 1 groundwater grant program is anticipated to initiate or solicit applications this summer. July of 2021 is what I'm hearing. And there's the potential that some of the projects included in the basin plan and or the more recent implementation plan, for example, the Program B community nitrate facility, the Upper Aquifer Capture and Treatment Project, or even some of the pilot study work mentioned by Director Zimmer could be eligible activities for that grant program based on my understanding of the goals and objectives for that program. And so there's something that the BMC may want to consider positioning for. I would remind the commission that the BMC did pursue funding for this program in the first round and was not successful. However, I think at that time, the projects that they were submitted for the program were for pumping relocation, Program A and C projects, and those didn't quite fit the parameters, but I think Programs B and these other projects are a better fit. It is likely to be a relatively competitive program. Being the third round, there are a number of projects that have already received funding from this program and looking for additional funding, but could be an opportunity to pursue some grant funds. The other funding update is on the Prop 1 Stormwater Grant Program. That application period closed this summer, so there's not currently opportunities relative to that program for the BMC. I guess just mention, it's not underlined, but the water recycling funding program continues to be an open application opportunity should the BMC want to consider pursuing funding from that program at some point in the future. Moving down to the status of basin implementation and funding plans. JPA formation, Program B process funding. Just want to provide the update that with the recent completion of the implementation of plan initiative, the BMC identified the funding and organizational study as essential to assist the BMC in further implementation of the basin plan. And so funding for this study is included in the proposed calendar year 2021 budget, and that a working group of BMC party staff has been convened to initiate discussions and begin preparing a scope of work for this study with the intent of leveraging all the work and analysis that's been done previously, looking at different funding and organizational options for the BMC, and really just focusing on what are the necessary outside technical services that we need to obtain so that we can be efficient with hiring and utilizing a consultant for this effort. Moving down, I don't have updated wastewater or recycled water connection updates. I'm currently working with the county to come up with an efficient mechanism for how and when we provide those updates to reduce burden on county and BMC staff time, but intend to have the year-end numbers available at the January meeting. And that covers the main updates as part of the executive director's report. Though I would say there's one item that wasn't included in here that I would like to highlight for the BMC. And it is that we were able to complete the wellhead survey initiative that had been in the works for well over a year. We were able to survey, I think, approximately 15 wellheads. And that will provide better information on the elevation of the wells and the reference points, and ultimately much better information on the groundwater level measurements that we're obtaining from those wells. And so that information has been provided to Cleeth Harris geologists and will get incorporated into future monitoring results and the monitoring report. And that concludes my report.
Hey, thank you, Dan. Do we have any questions of Dan before we go to public comment?
Marshall, this is Mark. I just have one comment question. Regarding the Los Osos wastewater project flow and connection update. So one of the things I think, you know, as the wastewater project continues on and we see historical flows, and as the BMC works close with the recycled water beneficial use initiatives, it may be helpful to have this data presented in a easier to understand format, maybe graph or something showing the water deliveries. But one of the things that sticks out just looking at it is the metrics where sea pines is in gallons and the rest is in acre feet. So at least having the same metrics, and then, you know, if we wanted to really have contribution into, you know, our beneficial use and things, maybe a closer look at what are our goals of disposal and how are we meeting them. So just a closer look, maybe to put some thought on that and how the wastewater flows are presented and received. And then one other thing on the recycled water, yesterday's at the Board of Supervisor meeting, I heard that there was some discussion about water going to the schools, and I just didn't know if there were some updates and some improvements. Last I heard, that was, you know, we were kind of holding steady on that one, but if there's something that's happening out there, it'd be great. You know, I think that's a huge step forward for recycled water reuse there. So any update on that would be great to know about too.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions before we go to public comment? Okay, Laura, could you unmute yourself and go to public comment, please?
If you'd like to make a public comment and you're on your phone, please dial *9. And if you're on your computer, please raise your hand.
Again, this is just for item number 5, the executive director's report.
All right, Jeff, you're able to speak.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Edwards, and I wanted to speak to the ED report regarding the deployment of recycled water. And so you know, I have an October figure for Sea Pines. It's 1,412,000 gallons. There's a website the county has at the State Water Resources Control Board that you can get all this data on a real-time basis. So I would encourage you to confer with Rosalind Pisa at the county to get this link. So with that delivery in October to Sea Pines, still 2 months left, Sea Pines has received 21 million gallons of water at a cost to them of $6,627. It cost the county $7,000 to treat 1 acre foot. Not only is it not a good economic deal, it's bad for the basin. Stop delivering water to Sea Pines. The second item I wanted to discuss was the cannabis project that is going to the Planning Commission on January 28th. This item has been brought to your committee, and there's been no discussion of it. You're in receipt of the monsoon engineering report that attempts to demonstrate that retrofitting the urban areas RO systems is going to save water sufficient for 3.5 acre feet. Bad deal. Tell them no. 3.5 acre feet is equivalent to 20 to 25 single family homes or 30 to 35 multifamily homes. If they want to conserve water, stay on the east side of the creek. The last item I wanted to mention was regarding ADUs. And your report is not that detailed, and I'd like to make you aware of the fact that the Coastal Commission has suspended the county's approval of 8 ADUs in Los Osos. So those people have to wait. Those are folks that are retrofitting at a 2-to-1 basis, and the Coastal Commission has held them up indefinitely. They're held hostage by the commission. And I'd like to remind this committee and Mr. Gibson that he didn't support ADUs in Los Osos in the beginning and had to be outvoted by the board majority. These people are retrofitting. Maybe Supervisor Gibson can call the Coastal Commission and get them to back down on the 8 ADUs that would like to proceed in Los Osos. Thank you for your time.
All right, Julie, you just have to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. This is Julie Tacker, and I'm going to kind of piggyback on something Mark Zimmer was talking about with regard to the recycled water and the effluent disposal. The way this is displayed in the staff report, it seems to me that you'd want to uniform those so that you're either talking in gallons or you're talking in acre feet. Because and you'd also want to have a cumulative total on the Sea Pines delivery as you do as the rolling forward on the effluent disposal for Broderston and Bay Ridge. Just a kind of a housekeeping item there. And I think you'd want to then total both columns, so to speak, to show how much has been delivered in total. You know, we can do the math, but Mr. Heimel should do that for us. I also want to speak to the cannabis project that as I recall, I think it was me that brought it to your attention over a year ago. And I don't think that anything conclusive has come out of your committee in this regard. And this is going to the Planning Commission. January 28th is the date, I believe. And I think you do have some time to come up with a letter of recommendation to the Planning Commission on how that project proceeds. Personally, I think The amount of water that this project uses is simply too much. Even their proposal for offset is not adequate, as Jeff mentioned, but that it's using this much ahead of any new development and the adoption of the community plan and all those other things really isn't fair to the community of Los Osos that has already saved a lot of water, spent millions and millions of dollars on the basin and its studies. And this is an opportunity. I actually hope that because it is a discretionary permit, that the whole project is denied, but barring any miracles there, certainly recommendations from your committee would be welcomed by the Planning Commission and the board if necessary. So I'd like to see you circle back around to that conversation, maybe in your next month's agenda, so that you could squeak out a letter just before it goes to hearing. Thank you very much.
Okay, Laura, do we have anybody else?
Yes, Lindy, you just have to unmute yourself.
Okay, now I think I'm on the right public comment. I appreciate what Mark Zimmer brought up about a better charting visual for the use of the recycled water. And at the same time, I still believe that the ag exchange that was initially the great use of recycled water and hasn't really occurred. I would like to see more about whether the price per acre foot of delivering that purple pipe water could be looked at again as a way to encourage that they begin to participate in not pumping the groundwater and making use of our recycled water resource. Most of them are much closer to the treatment plant. And I think the cost of pumping it all the way across town is got to be much higher than a delivery for local current water user, farm activity, ag users. And then I would have to agree about the cannabis farm. Jeff and Julie both are correct. That is a new water use. And if we're trying to make enough water available for new growth, that needs to be completely vetoed because it does not return the 2-to-1 by any means. So I think writing a letter before the Planning Commission is an excellent input that you probably should take a look at. And so basically, I would like to see the recycled water broken down into something where we could understand better how much is going to go to schools eventually and where it stands at this point, because it was talked about some time back, but currently I know there are some problems with Broderson not taking some of the water. So that would mean that the water needed to go elsewhere. And I'd just like to see a better visual that could show where that water, recycled water, is being used. So thank you.
There's no other public comment at this time.
All right, thank you, Laura. So we'll bring it back then. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. We'll bring it back to the committee. So that we move on to item number 6, the special presentation, on-site wastewater treatment systems by local agency management program. Dan, would you like to introduce this, please?
Yeah, so for this, we have Michael Bird, Environmental Health Specialist with the County of San Luis Obispo Planning and Building Department. And Michael is going to give us an overview presentation on the recently, and he can help us with the specific terminology, but I guess adoption or transfer of regulatory powers from the regional board to the county for on-site wastewater treatment systems and the local agency management program.
All right, hello everyone. Hello Supervisor Gibson and Basin Management Committee. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, sorry, thank you. All right, let me share the screen. All right, it's letting me know that I cannot share the screen at this time.
I just made you the host. Please try to share again.
All right, and yes, I'm the program manager for the on-site wastewater treatment systems with the County of San Luis Obispo. And as noted earlier, the local agency management program was recently approved by the Regional Water Quality Control Board and is planned to go up for adoption in front of the San Luis Obispo Board of Supervisors early 2021. The exact date has not been confirmed yet, as we're still working on the staff report. So as you guys know, the local agency management program heavily impacts the Los Osos area in general. It is designed to basically be more protective of the groundwater than the previous permitting of the Regional Water Board odds policy that was in place prior to the land. So a little bit of background is the local agency management program is, you know, the cumulative actions of Assembly Bill 885 or AB 885. The purpose of the LAMP is to allow the continued use of on-site wastewater treatment systems within the jurisdiction of the County of San Luis Obispo, as well as to expand the local program to permit and regulate non-conventional on-site wastewater treatment systems from here on out will be OTS, while protecting water quality and public health. The LAMP, Local Agency Management Program, also applies to OTS on federal, state, tribal lands to the extent authorized by law or agreement. Previously, the county permitted within Tier 1. This allows to Tier 2 permitting. More specifically, non-conventional systems, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So permitted, Tier 2 is permitted or new replacement OTS through customized management programs that address conditions specific to local jurisdictions and allow local permitting per an approved land. Furthermore, on Tier 2 permitting, conventional on-site wastewater treatment systems, as many of you may know, is individual disposal systems, community collection and disposal systems, alternative collection and disposal systems that use subsurface disposal. Non-conventional systems, or NOTS, it also provides additional treatment of the effluent to reduce nitrogen, total suspended solids, and the biological oxygen demand, BOD. It may also provide disinfection against pathogens or alternate methods of effluent dispersal. A little history on the Los Osos Basin. Wastewater loading from OTS can potentially degrade groundwater, as I'm sure you guys know, groundwater quality and contribute to nutrient enrichment of surface waters. Impacts to groundwater are of most concern. San Luis Obispo, nitrogen occurs in concentration in domestic wastewater, typically between 50 and 90 milligrams nitrates per liter. A 2018 county-led study conducted by Quest Engineering analyzed 20 focus areas for groundwater nitrate concentration impacts based on the potentially high density of on-site wastewater treatment systems under full build-out conditions. I want to really express that this is not current in many situations. It's looking at those areas at complete and full build-out of every parcel. So elevated groundwater nitrate concentrations have been documented in several areas in San Luis Obispo County over the years, notably in the Los Osos area. The 20 focus areas, 4 areas may experience potentially severe impacts, 6 areas may experience moderate impacts, and 10 would likely experience minimal impacts. Minimal impacts are not subject to additional regulations. Los Osos in particular has been susceptible to elevated nitrogen loading and groundwater degradation and is identified in many locations as severely or moderately impacted, which are identified in Table 4, Figure 7, 8, and 9, which I will show soon, and is also located in the local agency management program. Certain areas have been identified as septic prohibition areas, which are identified in Figure 4, 5, and exemption areas identified in Figure 2 and 3. These are the maps. The farthest one to the left is the septic prohibition area. Within the prohibition area are the Bayview Heights and the Martin Tract. Can you guys see that? All right. Furthermore, on the Bayview Heights and Martin Tracts, per order number R3 2012, the Central Coast Water Board retains authority for permitting of new OTS or OTS repairs within the Bayview Heights and Martin Tracts in the community of Los Osos, as is indicated in figures 2 and 3. County Planning and Building does not have the authority to permit new OTS or repairs of existing OTS in these areas. At such time that the Central Coast Water Board, Regional Water Quality Control Board, rescinds order R3 2012, the Bayview Heights and Martin Tracts will migrate under the permitting authority of the County of San Luis Obispo. At that time, OTS in these areas will be subject to the provisions of the land. These are the severe and moderate nitrogen loading areas within the Los Osos area. The red is severe and the orange would be considered moderate. Restrictions to this area: the Los Osos septic prohibition areas are restricted from utilizing an OTS for new development or repair. They must connect to community service district. Los Osos severe and moderate nitrogen loading areas. New and repair OTS in moderate and severe impact areas shall require the installation of the supplemental treatment system, STS, in accordance with Section 8 of the LAM. The requirement for installing a supplemental treatment system may be waived by the County of San Luis Obispo if the results of a site-specific hydrologic investigation performed by an engineer, geologist, or environmental health specialist determines that the following conditions are present. First, 3D modeling, and this is either or, it doesn't have to be both of them. So a 3D modeling of groundwater related to nitrogen percolation, which demonstrates that discharge will not impact groundwater, or B, the nitrogen concentration in the groundwater underlying the subject property is 1 milligram of nitrates per liter or less. The investigation must be performed by an engineer, geologist, or environmental health specialist. Repairs to existing OTS in severe and moderate nitrogen loading areas. A non-conforming repair is when the owner of the system being repaired declares financial hardship and records a declaration on the property deed stating that the OTS has been repaired in a non-conforming manner. This serves as an acknowledgement that the installation of the conforming NOx will be required. This non-conventional on-site wastewater treatment system, that's one with a supplemental treatment, will be required at the time of property transfer. Repairs to existing OTS in severe and moderate nitrogen loading areas. This is a little jargony, but I'll try to explain it. So OTS components covered by section 11.1 and 11.2 in the state OTS policy shall be required to meet current standards located in the SLO land. Tier 2, unless permitted by the Regional Water Quality Control Board. Section 11.1 and 11.2 are segregated by OTS component type, either dispersal field or septic tank. If a septic tank requires corrective action, the dispersal field is not subject to meet the current standards, and vice versa. If dispersal field has a failure or requires corrective action, the septic tank is not required to meet current standards. A local agency may authorize repairs that are in substantial conformance to the greatest extent practicable with Tier 2 in accordance with the section 9.2.3 in the state OTS policy if there is an approved land. See section 9AJ or section 2D7A and B in the SLO land, which we just went over the exceptions. Requirements for non-conventional on-site wastewater treatment systems. For new residential systems or systems generating only domestic wastewater in moderate or severe impact areas, NOx shall achieve an effluent concentration of less than 10 milligrams per liter total nitrogen and or a 50% reduction in nitrogen per milligram per liter, and show less than 30 milligrams per liter total suspended solids and biological oxygen demand. Non-conventional on-site wastewater treatment systems require an operating permit issued by the County Planning and Building. The operating permit shall be required prior to final inspection. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, this is Bruce. If you can hear me, Mr. Byrd, when are we expecting the regional board to take this up?
The regional board approved it already on September 25th.
That's what I thought. And so is there any, our LAMP is in place now, is that correct?
The LAMP is currently in place, and the regional water board has given permission to operate the LAMP in its full.
Okay, that's a good thing, and that's something that the regional board is very happy with, because they didn't really want to permit each and every septic system in the county
Yes.
of San Luis Obispo. So I appreciate the effort. It has been a substantial effort to get our LAMP to a point where it could be approved. I guess the other question I have is that you identified a couple of places in Los Osos where septics is still used as having moderate to severe nitrogen loading.
Yes.
And that was based on the 2018 report that you quoted in your.
Yes. The severe and moderate and low nitrogen loading areas are based on the 2018 Cuesta engineering led study, which also the SLO County was a participant in designing as well. So those areas.
Go ahead.
Well, I just to elaborate, those areas are under full build out conditions as well. They don't necessarily mean that they're above drinking water standards or near drinking water standards. Those are under if every parcel within that area was developed fully.
These were not then measurements of groundwater in those areas.
They're
right?
not. They're not.
They are estimates of the total amount of loading that would occur at build out based on average flows to septic systems.
Yes, that's correct.
So that's what sets the criteria for having to potentially do something more than just a standard septic system. Add supplemental.
Yes. All wastewater treatment systems located in moderate and severe will have to meet the supplemental treatment systems unless an exemption is granted.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies it.
I'm sorry I wasn't able to speak in a minute ago. For some reason, my thing wouldn't unmute. So do we have any other questions?
I have a comment from Charlie at S&T. Recently, there was a request for a permit to repair a septic system in one of these high nitrate areas, Cabrillo Estates. The septic system, the leach system had failed, and the county building department denied a permit to repair that. And the way I understand it, this system will be waiting on the design and implementation of one of these non-standard on-site waste treatment systems, a supplemental treatment system, before that system can be put back online. Do I understand that correct, Michael Byrd?
Yes, that is correct.
You finally got an answer to that question, Charlie.
Yes, I believe Charlie was CC'd on that email as well concerning that specific parcel. There's not been a submitted non-conventional system yet, so that has not been permitted yet.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a question before we go to public comment?
No, thanks, Marco.
Okay, Laura, let's go to public comment.
If you'd like to make a public comment and you're on your phone, please dial *9. And if you're on your computer, please raise your hand. Lindy, you just have to unmute yourself.
Okay, Lindy Owen. I had a couple questions. One, it would be interesting to know the cost comparison between the currently permitted and then the advanced treatment systems that may be required in areas that are showing high nitrates. So just an idea, because I know sometime back it was extremely expensive to go to the enhanced version. So if there's just a general idea. And then I think it's always been a question why Cabrillo Estates was not put on the sewer system, and they're all on septic tanks with very small areas for their leach fields, et cetera. And currently it appears that most of the nitrate problems that are showing are right below that area. So I guess the question would be, will they be asked to install the enhanced systems throughout Cabrillo Estates as a choice to either hook up to the sewer, which would probably be less money, and would help the overall cost of individual sewer costs that the rest of us have to pay. So just I wonder if that's being considered. And then the areas that are, is it still one septic tank per acre is considered non-impactful? I believe that was, that used to be the standard. And so areas that are outside the prohibition zone still on septic tanks, will they be at the point of sale, they would have to have their inspection done, correct? Anyway, maybe if you could just help me understand some of those questions. Thank you.
Hi, Lady. So the Cabrillo Estates is, I believe, located within the severe nitrogen loading impact area. So any on-site wastewater treatment systems which require correction with either their septic tank or dispersal field, that component will then have to meet the updated standards within the lab, and those standards would require a supplemental treatment system. Cost difference of that is very difficult to really address, because each parcel will have different issues, whether it's a setback issue, whether it's their specific use. There might be more people in a dwelling causing higher nitrates, higher difficulty to reduce those nitrates. So I've heard terms or not terms, but money estimates between 20 and 40,000 for a supplemental treatment system or non-conventional system. However, again, that's very there's a big array of systems out there, some more expensive than others. As far as one septic tank per acre, I'm unaware of that standard. There are parcel size requirements, such as if you have a well, you have to have a minimum of 1 acre. However, there's no septic tank maximums, I guess you would say, number of septic tanks that are able to be permitted per parcel. It just really depends on what dwellings is being served. However, I would like to note that septic tanks are not contributors of groundwater failure or degradation, unless there's a structural failure to the tank. It's typically the dispersal fields, which are the on-site wastewater treatment system component that disperses the effluent into the ground. And I think that's all of your questions. Oh, final question. If there is sewer available, a parcel must connect to that sewer, that CSD, if it is available, except for some exemptions, which is if the connection is twice the cost of the wastewater treatment system and or it is over 200 feet for the connection.
All right, I'm going to continue with public comment. Julie, you're able to speak.
Yeah, I wonder if Mr. Bird could put the map back up so that we could see what the zones are. And while he's doing that, Mr. Gibson suggested that the Regional Water Quality Control Board didn't want to permit individual systems. Well, now the county gets to. And Mr. Cody's question about one particular system that's failed, does that system now have to wait until the County Board of Supervisors takes action on the LAMP? Because then it's polluting every day that it's in use until it's repaired. So I think the effort to get it repaired to whatever today's standards are is important. But I see the map. Thank you for putting that up. And that is the majority of the homes on septics in Los Osos. That little bit of area over by the junior high is not affected by this. So I see some problems with outreach and reaching these neighbors, and clearly they're not aware that they'll be affected. The Regional Water Quality Control Board process is really for wonks. You know, I watched the agendas go by. But now when we get to the county level, there may be some very upset people that would have to comply with this at, you know, $20, $40, $50,000 to be able to comply. So I think Lindy's question is fair in that maybe there is an analysis that needs to take place that a Cabrillo Estates or a Bay Ridge gets a price tag if the total neighborhood were to hook into the sewer. There's clearly enough capacity for the Los Osos wastewater project. I don't want to hold my breath, but I think that would be a fair analysis for those neighborhoods to actually be able to see that. But I don't know who would do it. It's going to be shocking to some of the people in the community when they get hit with a bill like that.
Julie, you've hit your 3 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Jeff, you just have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Again, Jeff Edwards, and I have a couple questions and a couple observations. The first question is, what criteria was used to determine whether you were severe or moderate? What was it based on groundwater quality and what levels? Secondly, maybe Mr. Bird could explain a little bit what a supplemental treatment system looks like. But it would appear to me that virtually any replacement system or new system, it's going to be impossible to meet this criteria. And in virtually every case, they're going to require a county waiver. So I'm a little curious. Another question, if I heard it correctly, is the quality of the water that's discharged from these systems, is this supposed to be 1 milligram per liter or less? Because our wastewater treatment system doesn't clean the water to that level. I believe it's around 5 milligrams per liter, if I'm not mistaken. So this whole setup appears to be a failure in the making. And again, that will require waivers. The other observation I'd like to make is that people on septic systems, their flows are very much reduced. They have high efficiency fixtures, in many cases. And then they're also deploying gray water systems. So the concentration is increasing with water that's diverted for landscape irrigation and the like. So again, I think this is a setup for failure. And I think the Board of Supervisors meeting where this is considered might be popular, maybe as popular as yesterday. Thank you.
All right, Lynette, you're able to speak.
Hi, Lynette Tornotsky. I wanted to thank Mr. Bird for his excellent presentation. And I'd like to know if this PowerPoint will be up on the BMC website. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette.
There's no other public comment at this time.
Okay, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the committee. Does anybody want to answer any of the questions that were raised? Bruce or Dan?
I wouldn't mind answering just to clarify one or two of them.
Michael, I'm sorry, there was 3 of them. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, I should have asked if
Yeah.
you wanted to answer because it was your presentation.
Yeah, so where's so just to clarify that the supplemental treatment systems do not have to meet 1 milligram per nitrates or less. That's only if you want an exemption to not use a supplemental treatment system, you have to show that your groundwater is already at 1 milligram per nitrate or less. That could be from a sampling well or anything, or an established well on your property. If I go back, so a supplemental treatment system is to meet 10 milligrams or less of total nitrogen, and or a reduction of 50%. So that those numbers are easily attainable for almost every, if not every, non-conventional system that is currently available to homeowners, which the technology is only getting significantly better as time progresses, and these become much more popular as density increases with the ADU ordinance in California. And to note on the financial hardship, people are able to apply for a waiver because of the financial hardship if that is not able to be met in some situations. So if finances are difficult, those are variances that can be allowed through the county. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Dan, do you have an answer for that other question? Or Bruce, do you have any questions or answers or comments?
I'm not sure what of the questions require
No, I'm just
answering.
asking if you wanted to comment because.
No, I'm fine on that, and we'll look forward to seeing how this is implemented. This is 885, AD 885 is a big deal, and it's a topic of conversation statewide, and how we move forward is going to be interesting. On the flip side, there's a lot of opportunity to better protect groundwater. So this is really, in a way, as much work has gone into making the lamp, this is really, in a way, just the start of this. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is Daniel, just a point. Yeah, presentation, very informative. Thank you, Michael. Let's coordinate on getting that presentation up on the BMC website so it's accessible to the community. And then I guess I had one question relative to the comments. I guess I'm not answering it, but what in this time period between the regional board approval and the board of supervisors adoption, what does that do, if anything, to the regulations?
So we are able to approve, for the regional water board, approve non-conventional systems at this moment. So as long as they are not in Bayview Heights and the Martin Tract, which is the two maps on the right, as long as they are not in those two zones, the county is currently able to permit non-conventional systems.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Michael, for the very, very good presentation. I think it was very informative. So with that, let's move on to the next item, which is item 7A, review and approval of the proposed calendar year 2021 BMC budget. Daniel?
Thank you, Chair Ohilski. Yes, item 7A, the proposed calendar year 2021 BMC budget. As the commission knows, as outlined in the rules and regulations for the BMC is directed to adopt an annual budget for the following year at the first BMC meeting following December 1st of the current year. So we're in the appropriate time within the BMC budgeting cycle for review and consideration of the budget. As the commission knows, we've recently gone through a relatively extensive implementation plan evaluation where the BMC and the BMC party staff work collaboratively to identify and evaluate the different planning and implementation initiatives that are available to the BMC in an effort to help build consensus on how the BMC can focus its staff and funding resources to improve the sustainability of the basin and aid in the further implementation of the basin plan. So what we have here today, we can move to the next slide, is a proposed calendar year 2021 BMC budget. It includes really the baseline functions of the BMC budget. Those are really focused on the court required activities, and the BMC administration was what we consider the baseline functions. However, additionally included in this year's budget are the following items based on the direction that was provided at the October 20th, 2020 BMC meeting. One is the funding and organizational study that I referenced in the ED report. Two is funding and the development of a process for the formalization of adaptive management procedures. And then three is the top three planning initiatives that were identified and agreed upon by the BMC party staff that came out of the implementation evaluation. And then one additional item that you'll see on the proposed budget is the implementation initiative evaluation. I'll speak to that on the next slide. So the additional items, as I described earlier, the first one's the funding and organizational study, and I've included a description and then some comments on the origin of this item. But this is really a study to evaluate potential funding mechanisms for programs B and D or other potential water resource resiliency improvement projects. For example, AB 1600 study could be one of those funding mechanisms and a component of this study. As described previously, we've got a working group that's been formed to define the scope of work for this study and to be efficient as we can in terms of only soliciting consultants to perform services for items not previously evaluated in previous BMC studies, such as the TOSIG report. Additionally included were the top three planning initiatives from the implementation plan evaluation. The first is a recycled water beneficial use evaluation, estimated at $15,000. This would include an updated evaluation to analyze the benefits of discharging recycled water to the existing and or future disposal or recycled water sites. And also to investigate opportunities to potentially increase the amount of water that can go to the Los Osos water recovery facility to increase our recycled water supply and the ability to utilize that recycled water supply to improve basin sustainability. And this item really hopefully will address a lot of the comments that we received earlier on the executive director's report about the different uses of recycled water, the constraints around the uses of recycled water, and the opportunities to utilize this critical resource for the community to improve overall water supply reliability. The next item is the basin monitoring metric evaluation. This is an updated evaluation of the existing metrics for water level and water quality that we use to track the health of the basin, and inclusion of a potential new metric evaluating nitrate concentrations in the upper aquifer. This is identified by BMC party staff as a critical initiative, as these metrics are what we use to understand the current status and the health of the basin and whether or not we're making progress or being impacted by seawater intrusion and other parameters that can impact the vulnerability of the basin. And a couple reasons this is being proposed. One, it's been 5 years since we began developing and tracking these metrics. Two, we've got we've got new data over the last 5 years in terms of volume of recycled water and water to Broderson available. 3, we have a better understanding of hydrogeology. 4, we have new monitoring opportunities with the Cuesta by the Sea lupine wells for potentially inclusion in these metrics. And so the timing seems appropriate to reevaluate those metrics as they're important for the operation and evaluation of basin sustainability. The 5th one, the next item is the Broderson Mound transducer installation. This would include installing groundwater level transducers near the Broderson disposal site to just provide early detection on the rate of progress that the Broderson Mound is developing. The Broderson Mound is a key component of the strategy in the basin plan for preventing seawater intrusion. And so these transducers will provide new and additional data on the status of that mound formation. And then the last item is the implementation initiative evaluation. This is a budget line item included in the BMC budget to provide an opportunity for additional technical evaluation support to assist the BMC parties in evaluating potential implementation initiatives or sort of capital project initiatives, and identifying preferred implementation initiatives for improving basin sustainability. This was included by the BMC party staff because the thought was, as we move forward with the funding and organizational study initiative, we identify the need to further study the different types of implementation projects that we would want to include or fund with the different funding mechanisms being evaluated, and so that the BMC could move forward effectively and efficiently in advancing the implementation of the basin plan with this line item. On the next slide, we have the overall proposed calendar year 2021 BMC budget. It is a subtotal of $285,000, including a 10% contingency of approximately $28,000. The proposed budget has a total of $314,000. If we move to the next slide, we can look at that total relative to historic BMC budgets. And really just the point here is that the proposed budget falls in line with the total budgets with contingencies that the BMC has seen since its inception in 2015, 2016. And then on the next slide, we show a cost breakdown of the proposed calendar year 2021 budget based on the current percentages that the BMC utilizes for cost sharing of BMC costs. And so that is the slides that I've prepared with regards to the BMC budget, and I would open it up to the BMC for questions.
Okay, thank you for the detailed presentation, Daniel. So do we have any questions before we go to public comment?
Marshall, this is Mark. Just a couple comment questions. Just looking at the overall budget, it is a slight increase from the past year, but overall these projects are in line with our previous discussion, and I find them to be worthwhile projects. So I support them. And then just Dan's inclusion of the past budget amounts for comparison was helpful. Just making sure that we're staying in line with our historical budgets. And I just want to make sure that what we approve right now, we're approving to fund these essential initiatives and per our percentages. And so I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. The emphasis is really, Dan's report and the cost sharing needs, they need to be addressed in order for us to move forward, with our project. So that was something that highlighted to me. So thank you, Dan. Appreciate you putting together this budget. Yeah, I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to point out that this budget is being approved by us, but it has to go to the various bodies for their approval before it can actually be implemented. So this is our basically approval of the budget, recommending it to our entities to fund it.
Good. Thank you for that clarification, Marshall. That was what I was looking for.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments before we go to public comment? Okay, Laura, let's go.
All right, if you'd like to make a public comment and you're on your phone, please dial *9. And if you're on your computer, please raise your hand. Jeff, you just have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Jeff Edwards. And unfortunately, this budget reflects a lot of paper pushing. And it also includes efforts that are going to lead to the hiring of additional consultants. I see consultants in the funding and organizational part, and I see possible consultants included in this technical evaluation of capital projects. These are things staff should be doing. And as far as the capital projects, that's your board's job or your committee's job. You're supposed to select the projects. And to talk about some of these other items, the recycled water beneficial use evaluation, great idea. Let's keep it simple. I can tell you right now, stop delivering water to Bay Ridge, stop delivering water to Sea Pines, don't deliver water to schools, and put most of the water at Broderson. And I'll have some more on that later, but this is not complicated, gentlemen. The basin monitoring metric evaluation, the #2 planning initiative, includes the potential for additional metrics? Are you kidding? How many metrics do we need to manage this basin? We've already got 3+ if you include climate. Why not have 10 metrics? Then we'll never get anywhere. This is absurd. The funding and organizational study, 40K, do we really need 40? Why can't staff do that? The CSD had David Tausig and Associates do one recently. Well, why can't you use that? This budget smacks of waste. Trim the waste. Staff needs to do their job, and the capital projects need to be brought to this board. Formalize adaptive management procedures. Come on. We could do that in an hour. It's not complicated. Adaptive management means don't give the water to Sea Pines, put it in Broderson so we can create a mound and see if it makes it into the lower aquifer. So your committee really needs to evaluate all this effort. This is staff created at work, more consultants, more money for less product. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Lindy, you're able to speak. You just have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Lindy Owen again. A couple questions. First, I think it was a really good budget presentation. It's very clear and it's helpful to those of us who follow along on the end here. But I guess I wanted to discuss the basin monitoring metric evaluation. I think it's really important that the metrics be updated as needed, because we are looking at, starting a build out based on past metric evaluation. And so the more information that's updated and gives us a better snapshot of where our water basin is headed, improvements or degradations, I think that's really important. So I like that 15,000 spent. I wanted to talk about the mound formation at Broderson. It's great that we have a place to put so much water, but at the same time, I've questioned how close seawater intrusion actually is, if it's increasing and moving to the area beneath Broderson Mound, where we hope that it will go through all the clay lenses and eventually get down into that layer of aquifer. I would like to know if currently it's being considered to make sure that the saltwater intrusion has not gone beyond the area that we're hoping to introduce the treated wastewater. Sorry, hey, sorry about my dogs. So anyway, I think the mound formation is interesting, but I also am concerned that by the time it does get through all the aquatards, there may be saltwater already intruded, and the difficulty of pushing that out is almost impossible. So I would like to leave that as my comments.
There's no other public comment at this time. Marshall, you're muted.
Okay, thank you, Lindy, and for the double talk there with you and your dog. So bring it back for further discussion and then a motion. So the recommendation from staff is to approve the proposed calendar year budget or provide alternative direction or alternate direction to staff. So what would you guys like to do?
Well, Mr. Chairman, after some comments, I'd like to approve the budget that's in front of us, thanking staff for preparing it. Just a couple of quick comments. One of them is—
Well, wait, Bruce, you made the motion. Can I see if we have a second first? Hold on.
Sure.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now, Bruce, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Marshall. County staff wanted me to make sure he noted that the county share of $62,000 is budgeted in our fiscal year 2021 flood control district budget, I believe, or the board's budget. And that simply means that any invoices that need to be submitted for payment to the county need to be submitted before the end of June, just so, because we have not appropriated any money past that at this point. And then let me just comment on a couple of things in the budget. I'm glad to see the further study of implementation initiatives. I think that's it's an obvious one, but also really important as we study metrics. I think that's going to point us. I'll make my pitch to the need for a transient model so that we understand how to interpret metrics as we deal with long-term versus short-term management issues. So I'm fully supportive of what's in front of us and look forward to the work plan for next year.
Okay, great. Any other comments?
Bruce, this is Mark. If I could just ask a question. So the funding that would end, what you were suggesting is that you would approve your percentage or the county's percentage of contribution to this budget as long as the money was spent prior to, I believe you said June, or let's just say the middle, June. So
Yeah.
would you be going through a budget process for the following year and at that point potentially receiving approval for the subsequent year, budget year?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that, until we pass the 21-22 budget, we don't have appropriation to make. We can't legally move money. We don't have at this point any authorization to move money out past the end of this fiscal year. But yeah, yes, we know we're in this for the long haul, and just how and how much we budget to spend on basin management activities, is an ongoing process. But our budget development process is well underway. Headed to we'll know more probably in early May as the proposed budget gets published, and then of course we go to budget hearings in the second week of June.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. I think we've ran into this, on subsequent years. So,
Yeah, Mark, the Los Osos CSD is in the same situation because we're not on a calendar year budget. We're on a fiscal year budget, the same calendar that the county is from July 1 to June 30th.
Okay.
So it's the exact same situation with us. So,
Yeah, it's technical.
okay.
yeah, right. That's a good way to put it, Bruce. It's a technical issue, right? Okay, so we want to take a vote then?
There's one thing I'd like, this is Cody from S&T. This is sort of a comment to Dan while we're talking about funding and organizational studies. It's mandated by the adjudication that the Basin Management Committee approve a budget for the 2021 calendar year by December of 2020. And it's probably a good idea to take a look at that and perhaps talk to legal counsel, ask them if it would be legal to go ahead and at this meeting, for instance, the December meeting of 2020, also present a budget for 2022, maybe go out 2 years, which would take care of the issues that the county, well, all the purveyors have with these things. S&T has a similar issue. We guessed correctly on this budget, so we have this money allocated. But perhaps we should be budgeting out an extra year in the future.
Thank you, Charlie. That's something we'll talk. I'll talk we'll talk offline with Daniel and then figure out an approach that will work legally and that makes the most logical sense. But thank you for the comment.
Yeah, I'll just add, this is Daniel, that was the intent ultimately with the implementation plan, is to get a budget for calendar year 2021, but then start thinking longer term and as we advance, add in additional years to assist in budget planning.
Yeah, that's something that we have talked about. So, okay, so can I have a motion then? Oh, I already have a motion in a second. Can we have a vote then? Dan, why don't we do a roll call for this because it is a budget issue?
Yep, let's do that. Director Cote?
S&T votes yes.
Director Gibson?
Yes.
Director Zimmer?
Yes.
Chair Ohilsky?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could please just note, I will have to leave the meeting at 3.
Okay. Well, we only have, yeah, okay. All right, so we're down to item 7B, which is the appointment of the BMC officers for calendar year 2021. The recommendation from staff is that the BMC review the existing officer positions and appoint officers for calendar year 2021 or provide alternative direction to staff. The bylaws require that we have officers, not new officers, but the officers take office at our January meeting. So this is something that we do need to do just to be in conformance with our bylaws. I don't know, Daniel, if you have anything else to add, or I can just bring it out for questions.
Yeah, I don't have anything else in a significant idea. I just wanted to leave it up to the BMC in terms of how they wanted to approach officers for the upcoming year. And so.
Okay. So, yeah, what do you guys want to do? And then we'll, if you want to give us some general comments here, and then we'll go out for public comment.
Well, Mr. Chairman, my feeling is that change is hard, and so we should stick with what we've got.
Okay.
This is Cody from S&T. I guess I think perhaps we should just acknowledge out loud, if I understand correctly, that the secretary position and the treasurer position at least are ceremonial with no tasks. And I think we should just say that right out loud. And
That's why I said what I said. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah,
Just a comment for me. I was kind of thinking along the other lines is just mixing things up a little bit. And I didn't know if maybe you wanted to, Marshall, if you wanted to step back a little bit. I know you've been doing it for several years now, and if you're comfortable doing it, or if you are tired of doing it, kind of leave that to you. But
yeah, I think, Mark, with the Zoom meetings and the COVID situation, that I think that I am more comfortable continuing until we get back to a normal operation situation, when then we can have in-person meetings and then, transfer the power, for lack of a better term. But that's just my opinion. In the short term, I think it's better to stay with what we have.
fine. There is one other comment regarding the alternate. I'd like to propose that Tony Lindstrom be the alternate for Golden State Water.
Okay. All right, well, let's go to public comment on this item. Laura, do we have anybody that wants to speak on this?
If you'd like to make a public comment and you're on your phone, please dial *9. And if you're on your computer, please raise your hand. Jeff, you are able to speak.
Yes, thank you. Briefly, my name is Jeff Edward. It is time to change things up a little bit. Marshall, with all due respect, you should allow Mark to take over the chair position. The COVID situation has zero to do with it. Mark is skilled at Zoom meetings, I'm sure, just as much as you are. So why don't your basin committee show that you're adapting, that you're mixing it up a little bit? Let Mark, he's never had the chair position. Let him have it. Let him run the meetings for a year and take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
There's no other public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. There is. All right, Julie, you just have to unmute yourself.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Julie Tacker, and I would just say to Mr. Gibson's comment that change is hard, but change is good. And I would like your whole board to revisit this whole subject. And you see rotation in every other council, every other commission. It's been this way a while, and it might be good. Change is good, and it might be time to make a change. It does sound like Mr. Zimmer is interested, and that's encouraging. So maybe he would take the nomination, and he'd have my full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
All right, Chuck, you just have to unmute yourself.
I just wanted to say that I agree with the two previous commenters. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
There's no other public comment at this time.
All right, so I'll bring it back to you guys and see what you want to do.
This is Cody from S&T. I'm fine with keeping the officer positions the way they are.
Second, with the change of alternate that Mark suggested.
Okay. Mark, do you have any comments before we take a vote?
No comments. I'm in agreement with that. I think we're able to collaborate and get business done. So
Well, I think we do a good job of collaborating.
Yeah.
So staff and a person-to-person level. So, like I said, I'm fine with continuing for another year, but I think once we get back to quote unquote normal times, I think it's time to restructure. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. You want to give us a roll call, Daniel, please?
Yes, Director Cody,
Yes.
Director Gibson,
Yes.
Director Zimmer,
Yes.
Chair Ohilsky,
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, that gets that off. I know you said you have to leave, Bruce, so on
I will.
7C, update on the status of basin plan infrastructure projects. Daniel, if there's anything that we need Bruce's comments on, could you give that first, please?
Just one update on the program C well at their November 5th meeting, the LOCSD Board of Directors reviewed and approved the selection of Site E, Bay Ridge site, as a preferred location for the second program C well expansion. And the next steps will be to move forward with the phase 2 CEQA analysis.
And my only question on this was the timing, the more specific timing on the completion of the 8th Street well. Does the CSD know what
We
that?
have Ron's on as an attendee. Ron, could you maybe chime in on that? You got to unmute yourself, Ron.
Ron, if you're on a phone, star 6. It's still saying you're muted.
There we
Oh,
go.
there you go, Ron.
Sorry about that. Yes, program A 8th Street well upper aquifer. We had been moving or dusted off the plans that were developed about 2 years ago and had been waiting for the grant funding from the Prop 1 grant, or the IRWM grant, I'm sorry. As we dusted off the plans, we realized there may be some complications with permitting with the county on the existing well building that will have to be modified. It's existing non-conforming. That may delay things a little bit, but we'll be working with county staff on that. Otherwise, we've got the funding in place and we'll move forward as soon as possible.
Thank
So
you.
no, just my last comment. That I take it there's no specific date, but sometime mid 2021 would be a good guess.
That would be great, unless we have to go through a variance process that could take 6 months or longer.
Okay. Well, certainly, I know you have great connections with county staff, but if there's anything I can do, I'd be more than happy to help. So
Thank you, Bruce. Yes.
all right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll bid you adieu. Best of the season, and we'll look forward to seeing you next year.
Okay, same to you, Bruce.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bruce.
Okay, so do you have anything else you want to speak about here, Dan?
Nope, those were the primary updates.
Okay, so do we have any other comments or questions by the members? If not, we'll go to public comment.
No comment for me, Mark.
Okay, Charlie?
No comments.
Okay, Laura, let's go to public comment for item 7C, update on the status of the basin plan infrastructure projects.
All right,
And
we
that
did
was
have
just
one
an
public
update.
comment emailed into us. It's from Todd Davison, the general manager at Sage Ecological Landscapes.
Okay.
He writes, I want to know what is the depth of the proposed well to be installed in the Los Osos CSD drainage basin behind my property. Will it impact my well next door? What are the proposed mitigation efforts that will be made to protect my water rights of my shallow 50-foot well next door that supplies the water to my office and residents and native and Mediterranean display gardens on site? If there's any other public comments and you're on your phone, please dial *9. If you're on your computer, please raise your hand. There's no other public comment at this time.
Okay, yeah, regarding the letter from Todd, I think if we could forward that over to Ron, because it's really, or Laura, it's the CSD is doing it well. So I think that that's something that the CSD needs to respond to that.
And Marshall, this is Dan. I have a response that was prepared on behalf of the CSD by Spencer Harris, Chief Hydrogeologist, that I can provide
Okay.
at this point, just to answer those questions for those that may be curious. So how deep is the proposed well? Spencer's response is that the proposed well will be 700 feet deep, so quite a bit deeper than the 50 feet of the existing well, and the proposed well will extract water from the lower aquifer. The capacity of the proposed well will be close to 200 gallons per minute. in answering the second question. And then the third question with regards to mitigation measures to prevent detrimental impacts to the 50-foot well. The response was that the existing well is completed in the perched aquifer, which is a dune sand aquifer extending from beneath the large portion of the central area of the basin, including Bay Ridge, downtown Los Osos, and Willow Creek areas. Most of the domestic wells in this area extract from the underlying aquifer, which is separated from the perched aquifer by a clay aquitard. The proposed community supply well would not extract water from either the perched or the upper aquifer, and would not cause the described well to go dry. And then just one additional point that there are existing mitigations and measures in place to recharge the perched aquifer, including the county's discharges to the Bay Ridge Estate disposal site, which offsets the reductions to the perched aquifer in return flow from former septic systems.
Has that letter been sent yet, or?
Yes, this response was also provided to Todd Davidson, but we wanted, because it was submitted as public comment, we wanted to provide it in the meeting as well.
So when did it go back, or when was it sent back to Todd?
It was sent to Todd earlier today.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Marshall, there is one other public comment that came in. Can I let them speak?
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, you just have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Edwards. I had not intended on speaking in connection with this item, but the letter is what triggered my response. I have to tell you, having sat in on the LOCSD meeting where they decided to select the Bay Oaks Drive location, Spencer's memo about them accessing Zone C was the primary reason the district went with that location. So I'm a little confused. Spencer has two different memos that contradict one another. And I mean, let's face it, that location at Bay Oaks is cut off from the creek. Spencer's earlier memo said it was inferior, had a yield of maybe 80 acre feet, when others were up to 140 acre feet. And yet he said, well, the yield can be enhanced by screening at Zone C. Well, that was his comment then. He again seems to have contradicted that. Let's get these things right. Is this well going to screen at Zone C or simply D and E? Facts matter, and I'll have some more facts in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there's no other public comment.
Okay, so we'll bring it back to staff, or pardon me, bring it back. Do you have anything other to add, Daniel? If not, we'll move on to item number 8.
I don't.
Okay, item number 8, Lindy, if you're still with us, public comments for items not appearing on the agenda, and this is where the item that you wanted to talk about. It's now time.
If you'd like to make a public comment and you're on your phone, please dial *9. And if you're on your computer, please raise your hand. All right, Lindy, you're able to speak. You just have to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. I hope my dogs will mute themselves. I apologize.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. We all have dogs and we know how they are.
Talkative dogs, but anyway, I guess I wanted to just, my comments are, I was very disappointed in yesterday's hearing to pass whatever, the community plan, the HCP, the reserve resource summary, the growth management, I guess 4 items. So obviously the 3 supervisors that don't really know much about Los Osos just felt that staff did a fabulous job. And, you know, when you can present a ream of paper full of stuff, it's impressive. So, so we'll see in the future the metrics that we come up with to decide when we have a sustainable supply for existing population. I appreciate the water purveyor's input on that. is really extremely important. So the little tiny steps that are proposed for new growth, I'm not ready to see those happen yet. So anyway, the other issue that I always talk about is the metering of the wells. The way I look at it, the county puts in what, 20%, 62,000, 63,000 is their input in it. We cannot balance our basin without knowing how much water is coming out of private wells. You look at the cannabis grow proposal, you know, those meters need to go in. It's pretty much proven that there's a 10 to 15% reduction of water withdrawal once each well owner understands and, you know, is more aware of how much water they're using. So I would like to see maybe an estimate of what it would cost to implement well monitoring for quantity across the 500 wells, private wells, and that let the county work with those private property owners so that we can actually get a correct metric, not a guesstimate. It's really extremely important. I don't understand the logic of letting those well users have no limits and not limits. They can use all they want, but to not know how much they use. I happen to know one private well that uses probably 10 times more than any normal home does and doesn't care. So those are my comments. Thank you. Have a good holiday.
Thank you, Lindy. Okay, Laura, we have some other people on.
All right, Jeff, you are able to speak.
Thank you, Jeff Edwards. I also wanted to do a little post-mortem on yesterday's board meeting regarding number 31. And it's unfortunate Supervisor Gibson left because he's my first comment. He was quoted as saying, conservation is being implemented in Los Osos. False. There is no conservation happening now. Then, at the request of Supervisor Ortiz-Legg, she asked about a question I raised about how the water recycling facility is actually working at cross purposes with your basin management. They thought it was the planning department, but it's Public Works. And Kate Ballantyne responded, and she talked about she made excuses about the Coastal Commission conditions of approval and how they limited what they could do. And I have to take issue with that. And I'm going to give you an example. Condition number 97 regarding regarding the Broderson location. And somehow Ms. Ballantyne thinks that 448 acre feet is the maximum you can put at Broderson. Well, that's not accurate. The condition allows for a calculation to be averaged on an annual basis. So you could be loading Broderson 40 acre feet or 50 acre feet a month instead of 30 acre feet a month. And it can work out through averaging. So we need to load Broderson. I keep mentioning that, but nobody seems to be getting it. Additionally, this is probably the central question in the whole discussion about water, and the basin yield metric included in the 2019 annual report. And county staff, they completely, well, this was a question posed by Supervisor Arnold about what's baked into the 69 basin yield metric, what basin management programs. And Ms. Hensley intimated that to achieve a 69 basin yield metric, you had to have the number 2 program C well complete and the program A upper aquifer well at 8th Street. And that's not accurate at all. The 69 basin yield metric contained in the 2019 annual report is based on program C number 1 well that Golden State put in Los Olivos. So my point is, why does this matter? Well, if county staff and the board members don't get it, that is, get the water picture, how are we going to persuade the Coastal Commission that we have an understanding of the water issue? or piece of this puzzle, because we don't. At least most of us don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Laura, let's go to the
All right,
next
Julie,
person.
you're able to speak.
Good afternoon again. This is Julie Tacker, and I didn't hear through this meeting your board pick up on the Wild Coast Farms cannabis permit coming forward. I had hoped that one of you, all of you, would have suggested that it go on a future agenda item, but you don't even have that on as an option at this point on the agenda. I would ask the chair to open that back up for your board to put it on a future agenda being next month so that you can get it in before the Planning Commission meeting of January 28th. I think this is an important project. It uses a lot of water, and your opinion has been asked for by LOCAC. They referred this project to you. So with that, I would ask that maybe your agenda be reformatted so that public comments on items not appearing on the agenda is up at the top so that Mr. Gibson can actually hear them. On meeting after meeting after meeting, Mr. Gibson has to go and he doesn't stick around for public comment. So we know how he feels about the public, but it is his duty to listen to the public. He does the same thing at the LOCAC meeting. He doesn't stay for public comment for items not on the agenda when everything that he attends is in his purview. So I would ask that you change the way this agenda is formatted for the benefit of the public, and hope you all have a nice holiday.
Thank you, Julie. That's something that Daniel and I will talk about and with our attorney about restructuring the agenda.
All right, Chuck, you're able to speak.
Thank you. This is Chuck Sesenia. I am representing myself as a private citizen, not a member of any governmental entity or any other sort of body. I want to thank staff for all the hard work that they're putting into this. It feels better these days than it did a year and a half ago. I think that there are accomplishments that are going to be happening. And I especially want to thank you, given the fact that the elephant's always in the room, even when it's not in the room. Several weeks ago, there was a request from one of the committee members to, well, just a request or wondering whether or not there was going to be a discussion regarding the letters that the purveyors had sent into the county regarding the community plan update. There were a number of concerns that were expressed in those letters, and I think it would have been a good idea to have that public discussion. It might have lended some valuable information out there. Wouldn't have hurt. The request was quashed with a promise that the county supervisor would reach out individually to each of the purveyors to discuss their concerns. I know that did not happen in at least one case. Can't believe it happened in the other two either. It's hard enough to ignore the elephant when it's standing quietly in the corner, hoping that its influence on the room will be overlooked. But given the lack of outreach regarding the purveyor's concerns, yesterday's 5-0 vote regarding the community plan update felt like a blow to the head from the trunk of the elephant. I'm not a hydrogeologist. I don't have advanced degrees, but I do have an undergraduate degree with enough of a scientific background to allow me to appreciate empirical data, hard numbers that you can verify, the kind that are associated with the chloride, water level, and nitrate metrics in the basin plan. Those numbers show that we're not near the goals and possibly are trending away from those goals. But all of this was ignored yesterday in favor of the total reliance on the softest of the metrics, the theoretical basin sustainable yield. And we know that we're finding out new things about the basin all the time. We found that out when we drilled a dry well over by the middle school last year. Oops, not as big as we thought. I just don't understand the willingness to ignore the metrics that we have, and now we're talking about adding more in favor of the one soft metric. Maybe it's time to revisit that model that gave us that metric and see if it really will ever lead to the other metrics falling in line. Again, staff, thank you very much for all your hard work, and here's to 2021. Thank you.
There's no other public comment at this time.
Okay, well, seeing none, then we'll go ahead and adjourn until our January meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Happy holidays and happy New Year's. Hoping next year will be better.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Laura, you can end the meeting.